The following program is paid for by Absolute Mortgage, a division of Pinnacle Capital Mortgage Corporation. Absolute Mortgage Company, NMLS number 81395 and Washington CL number 81395 is an equal opportunity housing lender. Tina Mitchell, MLO number 145420, is a licensed loan originator with Absolute Mortgage. Visit absoluteloans.com or call 888-90-HOMES for cost information.
You're listening to The Money Hour with your host, Tina Mitchell, sponsored by Absolute Mortgage, a division of Pinnacle Capital Mortgage Corporation. Now, in the studio, local mortgage and finance expert, Tina Mitchell.
Well, welcome to The Money Hour on 570 KVI, the Sunday, April 6th show. I'm your host and mortgage expert, Tina Mitchell. Thank you for taking time to talk money. I'm here every Sunday at 11 a.m. right here on 570 KVI. I've built a network of elite industry professionals every week sharing the knowledge and expertise to all of my listeners. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about real estate, estate planning, and transportation. So lots of great topics, amazing guests in studio. If you have any questions, feel free to call the show, 1-888-987-0570. Again, that's 1-888-987-0570 or online at themoneyhour.com. And the lineup today, Kian and Kelly Pournour with Windermere Real Estate. The real estate market has changed dramatically since the meltdown. Now that there are different challenges to deal with, but there's a lot of benefits out there as well. So we're going to break it down and discuss that with Kian and Kelly. Also, I have in studio Representative Judy Clibborn, Mercer Island Mayor and City Councilwoman. We're going to talk about transportation, gas taxes, and State Route 99 tunnel. Last time I had Judy in studio was back 2011 because we were talking about the tolls that were coming up on 520. So you can tell you how long ago that was. We've been in the tolls and dealing with them for quite a while now. And last in studio, first-time guest, Doug Phillips with Phillips Estate Law. The significant loss of one's estate to payment of state and or federal taxes, state inheritance taxes, is a great motivator for you to put together an estate plan. So I want to help break it down with Doug today and for all of my listeners on the importance of estate planning. Again, great information. Amazing guest in studio. Pick up the phone, call my show, 1-888-987-0570. Again, 1-888-987-0570 or online at themoneyhour.com. And let's get into a little money chat. Two-one buy down. If you're listening right now, and this, I'm going to speak a little expertise on mortgage because all of you that are regular listeners to the show, that is what I do for my regular career when I'm not hanging out with you guys here on Sundays. And a 2-1 buy down, basically it's an opportunity for people that feel that their income is going to be good future, maybe in the next couple years, and they want to work their way into a mortgage payment. It's a great opportunity to be able to take advantage of that opportunity. And it's called a 2-1 buy down because it is a fixed interest rate for the first 2 years, fixed interest rate for the second year, for the third year, and a fixed interest rate for the remaining 30 years. But the reason they call it a 2-1 is because the first 2 years, it's a 2% lower rate than your original lock-in is. So if you were to lock in your interest rate at 4.25% on a 30-year fix, again, I'm not quoting interest rates, I never do, but just a good estimate to use for conversation purposes today. A 2-1 buy down in that scenario, your interest rate for the first year would be 2.25%. The second year, it would go up to 3.25%, which is 1% lower than the actual rate. And for the remaining portion of the loan, the interest rate would be 4.25%. So you can see with that lower interest rate for the first 2 years, you're going to be able to save on your mortgage payment. So it's a temporary buy down, not to get confused with a permanent buy down. A permanent buy down would be if you were buying your interest rate down for the permanent period of time of the loan, where you're paying discount points to see a benefit of a lower interest rate over the 30 years. So it's just a little different way to see some benefits again in your mortgage payment. So if we were to look, let's just use an example. It's always nice to look at numbers, especially when you're on radio and not visual. But I'm a numbers gal, so I always like to bring them up in studio. Let's look at a $300,000 loan amount. If the interest rate was 4.25%, for the first year being it's a 2-1 buy down, so a 2% lower rate for the first year at 2.25%, your principal and interest would be $1,140. So you're saving $335 a month for the first 12 months of that loan. So over $4,000 for the first year. Then the second year, the interest rate again is going to go up. It's going to go up 1% from where it started. which is 1% lower than where it's ultimately going to be. So again, we'd be at 3.25%. On the same $300,000 loan, the principal and interest would be $1,305. So you're saving $170 a month on the second year. Over that 12-month period, it's just over $2,000 that you've saved. So again, the benefit of this is if you feel that your income's going to go up, or maybe you're a first-time home buyer and you're renting and just trying to get adjusted to the fact that you're going to be paying more, might be a benefit for you as well. So the third year, you'd be at $1,475. That's where it's going to be for the remaining portion. So you've saved in the first 2 years about $6,000. Now, where does this money come from? It can come from different sources. So you can have the lender actually pay for the buy down, but if you're going to do that, it means that ultimately you're taking a higher interest rate over the life of the loan. So if the market rate was 4.25%, you're not going to get a 4.25% interest rate. Maybe you're going to see a 4 7/8. So that's not my favorite thing to do unless you're going to keep the property for very short term. Another way to do it is to pay additional fees up front, which is going to equal that $6,000. Remember, you saved 2 years. It's not like you're getting anything for free. That $6,000 is going to be paid. It's going to be paid by you, but you're paying it up front to buy down that interest rate for the first 2 years of the loan for that temporary buy down. Now, a real great way to be able to do that is if you're in a position that you can get something from the seller. Now, I have experts in studio that we're going to talk on real estate, and I know in this arena, there's so many multiple offers going on. If you're working in any market that has competitive offers or multiple offer situation, it's going to be literally impossible to get the seller to do anything. Whether or not you can increase the price to get them to agree, I don't know. That's something you need to talk about with your real estate agent. But in a different environment, or if you're buying in a market that doesn't have multiple offers, it's something that you can look at doing, again, just to have that worked into the seller, and that way you can see those benefits and ultimately get into the home. If you have any family members that are dying to gift you money, this is a really good thing. Just gift you $6,000, help you save a few $1,000 in the first couple years, and to be able to get into the home. So it's a really good creative way to help in the mortgage payment for the first 2 years, and wanted to share that with you. And that's what I have for Money Chat. Coming up next in the Money Hour, one of my trusted sources for our local real estate market advice for buyers and sellers, Kian and Kelly Pournour with Windermere Real Estate, right here on 570 KVI.
Kelly and Kian understand the urgency of shelter both in their business and in their community. They're here for you not only as exceptional real estate brokers, but also advocates for affordable housing and ending homelessness. They've worked with first-time homebuyers, relocation companies, sellers, and are certified negotiating experts. They're also tireless advocates of Windermere Foundation. Kelly and Kian encapsulate their services in one simple phrase: a home for you, a home for all.
Hi, this is Kian Pournour.
And this is Kelly Pournour, and you can reach us at 206-949-9302 or on our website at kellyandkian.com. That number again is 206-949-9302.
Are you behind on your mortgage payments and unsure about the road ahead? Magnum Law Group helps families just like yours navigate through the foreclosure avoidance process. Are you underwater on your home and unsure what to do? Magnum Law Group will help you understand your options. Are you facing foreclosure and need to stop a trustee sale? Magnum Law Group has success in doing this and may be able to help you too. If you're tired of dealing with the banks and getting turned down for loan modification, Magnum Law Group will take on the banks for you and lead you through the process for the best possible outcome. They lead the competition with superior knowledge and expertise.
This is Craig from Magnum. You can reach us at 425-605-6393 or at www.magnumlawgroup.com. See you at the next seminar.
This is the Money Hour with your host, Tina Mitchell, on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Now, back to the show with local mortgage and finance expert, Tina Mitchell.
Welcome back to the Money Hour with your host and mortgage expert, Tina Mitchell, right here on 570 KVI. Each week I share expert advice and inside knowledge on today's events in our local economy and how it can affect your money. And back in studio again, I've had Kian and Kelly in studio before. Thank you so much, you guys, for coming back.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Kian and Kelly Pournour with Windermere Real Estate here to discuss what you need to know about the local real estate market, because there is a lot going on out there right now and it's ever changing. So I'm just excited for our conversation. A little background, both licensed real estate agents with Windermere Real Estate. Kian has lived in Seattle for 27 years. He's been an activist in its social and charitable scene. He's been a relentless advocate for issues on homeless and housing for the poor. Kelly is a Seattle native. One of a number of years she's taught at some of the most challenging high schools, earning many accolades for both her students, from her students and peers. Kian and Kelly stress a client-centered approach to educate their clients about the selling and buying process. Most of their business is North Seattle, but they go where their clients and referrals need them to go, and will want to take great care of you and do a great job for you. So again, I just really appreciate you guys taking time out of your busy day to come in and share your wealth of information with my listeners.
Great. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
So let's go ahead and just start out with the what's happening right now in our local real estate market.
Well, I pulled up the stats for March 2014, and it seems that the listings are up actually once again in both King and Snohomish counties.
That's good news.
That is very good news, but it's not specific to local Seattle real estate market. And still inventory in Seattle remains so tight that you are actually getting multiple offers, up to 22 offers on one piece of property or 40 on one piece of property in Phinney Ridge. So the real estate market in Seattle, the supply side of it is very, very tight.
Yeah, so Kian, let's go back to that a second. So for 20 to 40 offers on a home, and I know you guys are right in that area, and I don't know how you're doing it. What do you advise if you're, because I know you work with buyers and you work with sellers as well,
right?
But representing the buyer, I mean, how do you advise, and what are you telling them when you know that there's going to be 20 or 40 offers on a property?
I think that the main thing is just to educate them on what they would need to do to get it, and then if they can't do that, then don't bother writing one. And also educate them, like, well, if it sells for $100,000 over or $105,000 over, will you be upset that you didn't go that high? So just kind of educating on that. But basically, they have to waive all of their contingencies, financing, inspection. It's very uncomfortable and risky. And if they're not comfortable with that, and we explain the disadvantages of that, too, of doing all those things. And if they're willing to take the risk, then go for it. Otherwise, it's not necessarily worth it. Yeah.
So in a normal market, you've got contingencies and protection on your earnest money, and that's going to be your financing and your inspection. So if you waive that, and what are they doing on these properties? I know that the typical, but nothing's really typical with this environment right now, but typical is 1%. But what are they doing in these multiple offer situations as far as the percent for earnest money?
3 to 5%, and a lot of times it will be released to the seller prior to closing.
Yeah.
So halfway through the contract.
Okay. Still going towards their closing costs and everything, but released to them. So for any reason that you back out of the property, they're going to keep that 3 to 5% of the price earnest money.
Correct. It's non-refundable.
Exactly. So let's go into, there's different trends to watch for that give indicators of the direction of our local real estate market. What are you guys seeing with like foreign buyers?
Where the foreign investments are again picking up in Seattle, and I think that one of the reasons is again the cooling down of the economy in China. We are seeing a lot of investment coming to Seattle, and especially in West Coast. Because this is the closest to China. So if you're looking at, for example, San Francisco or Los Angeles or Vancouver, British Columbia, the price per square footage is somewhere between $500 to about $800 per square foot. When you're coming to Seattle, it's somewhere about $300 to about $350.
Wow.
And we have almost exactly the same kind of infrastructure that those have. You're going to have good transportation, good paying jobs, Amazon, Microsoft, biotech.
So just a great opportunity for them to come in and make some good money on our real estate here.
Yes, and one thing that we just learned is that Canada had, up until just maybe last month, I can't remember how long ago, but just recently they had an incentive for Chinese immigrants to come to Canada and buy real estate. They were allowed to come in. They were if they had $1.6 million, then they would get a loan for $800 by the government to buy real estate there. They just stopped that.
And so why were they doing that?
Just to encourage them to come to Canada.
So they're obviously not having the type of market that we are as stimulated as here otherwise, because that would be
It was pretty busy up in Vancouver, especially, but they just stopped that. So now they're more likely going to come to Seattle.
Got it. Okay.
Because of the price per square feet.
It makes total sense. So let's so lots of things going on, and that's an indicator that our market has huge opportunity. So these are things that we've looked at historically forever as far as an indicator of what's happening. Also, we looked at cash buyers, and I know that this is a real challenge in a multiple situation when you've got cash buyers. So what are you guys seeing in the cash buyer arena?
The percentage is increasing since the inventory in Seattle is very tight. And for people, for example, who are flipping houses, the only way that they actually can get the house is to either waive their financing or go in with cash and close in a short period of time, 2 weeks to 3 weeks.
Sure.
So, but the ratio, I think, that is definitely going to increase this year in comparison to last year. And again, it's on the supply side.
Yep.
The inventory is very, very tight in Seattle. So the competition is going to be more, and cash offer is going to come more and more.
Sure. So what do you see that means for 2014 in our local market? I know you guys don't have a crystal ball, just like I don't on interest rates. But what are you foreseeing?
So Matthew Gardner, who's a land economist, and he works with Windermere, has suggested that it's going to increase around 10% this year. Okay. I think Zillow is thinking around 6 or 8%. And we're, hoping it doesn't continue to go up 15, 20. It's just not healthy to do that.
Of course.
So, but hopefully, this spring it's quite crazy right now. So I have a feeling we'll see a huge increase now, and then maybe it'll slow down towards the end of the year, hopefully.
Okay. All right. So thinking out of the box, that's the name of the game. From a buyer's perspective, there's not too much thinking out of the box for a seller. They want to be strategic because they want to maximize their dollar. And I know that there's a lot of sellers that are not doing that because they don't have good representation. And that's why it's important. Even though it's a seller's market and you're going to be able to sell your home in most situations, you want to maximize it. But let's talk about the buyer and thinking out of the box. What are some suggestions you guys have?
Well, we, like we said on the last time we were on the show, that we tend to do a lot of off-market sales, that we send letters. As a buyer's representative, it's fine to do that. You can send out letters to different neighborhoods and see if anybody's willing to sell off-market, and that's a really good way to get a house. And
so what you're saying is if the sellers are not, their house is not listed, but you've got a buyer, and your buyer wants to be in that neighborhood, and so you're strategically going and placing a home that's not on the market that's going to match up perfect with what your buyer wants, and hoping that a seller, and it's kind of a numbers game, right?
Yes.
And so it's like anything else, it's a numbers game, but very few agents actually have the ability or even the effort to actually think out of the box like that. And I just think it's so great that you guys are doing that. So what would you say, how many houses on, because everything's kind of, numbers and statistics, what are you thinking number wise that it takes to go through that process to ultimately maybe get a buyer a house?
Well, let's say that the specific need of a client is 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, and about 2,000 square feet within Bryant neighborhood. And if you're looking at it, you will get about 700 to 800 houses that you have to send a letter to, solicit if they want to sell it or not. We always say that if you have an agent, let them know that we want to deal with you, so they go through their agent. This is not a solicitation actually to get a listing, so we want them not to be threatened whatsoever.
Makes total sense.
So out of those 700 or 800 letters that we are sending out, maybe we are getting somewhere around 3%. So you're talking about 20 calls will come back, maybe
which
even less.
Pretty good,
which
right?
is very good, but not all of them fit exactly the same criteria. Maybe there is a lot of, maybe they have got unrealistic expectation of how much the house is. It's just, we have to see if the seller matches the buyer or not, if the house matches the buyer or not, and that way we can do it. Last year, out of 52 transactions that we did, about 5 of them were off-market sales, so about 10%. Is it going to increase this year? With the lack of inventory, we are seeing more and more people are asking us to do that.
Okay. You've got to get creative. If you're listening right now and you're a buyer, I can't say how much representation is so important. It always will. It always is and always will be. But in this type of market, you've got to be working with the best of the best. And that is who I have in studio all the time. That's all I invite in here. It's very strategic in who I share with you as my listeners, because I really want to help you guys navigate and get through this process. So pick up the phone, give my show a call, 1-888-987-0570. Again, 1-888-987-0570. 987-0570. If you're a buyer, I highly, highly encourage to pick up the phone so I can connect you with Kian and Kelly. Kelly, were you going to say something?
Yes, one other suggestion we have is to possibly send letters to people who are to the sellers who are renting their house out. Maybe they want to sell that they've been renting for a while. Or we have people drive around the neighborhood and write down addresses that they like of the houses. So the buyers can do some of the work to themselves if they if they like certain neighborhoods. So there's just definitely things we can do in this market to get people houses.
Yeah, and you gotta definitely think out of the box. So what's happening? Let's talk about rents. What's happening in rents? Because again, this is another huge indicator of what's happening with real estate.
The rental market is also very, very tight in Seattle. We are seeing the largest shift in the foreign investment to be in this market in Seattle. Dupree and Scott have just released their apartment report. In Seattle, vacancy is still at 3.6%.
Okay.
Which means it's very tight. Anything below 5% is very tight. And with the rents rising 8% year over year, which is a lot.
Oh my God! Because what is the average, 4 or 5, depending on historical average?
Correct.
Okay.
So this is actually doubled this year, which is
I'm glad I own a home.
Yes. Well, it seems that it's getting more attractive to own a home rather than rent. And that's one reason a lot of people are getting into it. But with a tight inventory, a lot of people are saying that, should I just wait it out until, there's more inventory around? What should I do?
Yep.
And I always think that investing in real estate is a lot better than renting. The money goes in your pocket.
And always, and again, pick up the phone, give the show a call. If you want to look at an analysis, if you're out there renting, you definitely want to look at the numbers, because I totally agree. Why would you be throwing your money away on rent if you know you're going to be in this area and stay? Get into home ownership. So let's talk a little bit, a little different topic, but on loan program, because me being a mortgage expert, I always want to educate my clients on all their different loan options. And some people are in a position they really can't choose a loan because they need a lower down payment, or they may have a little challenging credit score, so they've got to go with a government versus a conventional program. How are you guys? What are you guys dealing with in that arena, and how are you talking to your clients about that?
Well, we refer them to you so that you can talk to them about it.
Thanks, Kelly.
Yes. But I think that the main thing is just to give them the different options of, what do they want to do, an ARM. They're going to be they're only going to be here for 5 years. Then they could do an ARM, and the different loan programs in terms of how much they want to put down and private mortgage insurance and things like that.
So what do you think, seeing with, if you do have an FHA or a government mortgage pre-approval versus your conventional, are you seeing that your clients with those not as attractive to the seller getting their offers accepted?
Absolutely. When you're talking about the type of a loan that you're getting and also who's giving you the loan, that's the most important thing. You want from a reputable company or brokerage firm that actually not only gives you good rates but also good service. That means that they're closers. The closing does not take more than 30 days and they deliver. That's the most important thing. Again, go for good rates and most importantly, good service. You need to have an outcome that is predictable.
Yeah, and when you're multiple offer situation, you as an agent side representing the seller or any other agent that represents the seller, I'm shifting the hats here. When you're looking at 20 or 40 offers and you've got a lender that's local in the market that does a lot of business, that has a reputation versus one in another state.
Huge difference.
Huge difference.
Yes. Very, very big difference.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, you guys. We just barely made it through the questions, but we got through them. And I just, again, appreciate your time so much. And thank you for coming into studio.
Yeah, thanks so much, Tina.
Thank you for having us.
1-888-987-0570. Pick up the phone. I'll get you connected with both of them. Coming up next in the Money Hour, State Representative Judy Clibborn. And we're going to talk with her today and discuss transportation right here on 570 KVI after this short break.
Are you behind on your mortgage payments and unsure about the road ahead? Magnum Law Group helps families just like yours navigate through the foreclosure avoidance process. Are you underwater on your home and unsure what to do? Magnum Law Group will help you understand your options. Are you facing foreclosure and need to stop a trustee sale? Magnum Law Group has success in doing this and may be able to help you too. If you're tired of dealing with the banks and getting turned down for loan modification, Magnum Law Group will take on the banks for you and lead you through the process for the best possible outcome. They lead the competition with superior knowledge and expertise.
This is Craig from Magnum. You can reach us at 425-605-6393 or at www.magnumlawgroup.com. See you at the next seminar.
Kelly and Kian understand the urgency of shelter both in their business and in their community. They're here for you not only as exceptional real estate brokers, but also advocates for affordable housing and ending homelessness. They've worked with first-time homebuyers, relocation companies, sellers, and are certified negotiating experts. They're also tireless advocates of Windermere Foundation. Kelly and Kian encapsulate their services in one simple phrase: a home for you, a home for all.
Hi, this is Kian Pournour.
And this is Kelly Pournour, and you can reach us at 206-949-9302 or on our website at kellyandkian.com. That number again is 206-949-9302.
This is the Money Hour with your host, Tina Mitchell, on Talk Radio 570 KBI. Now, back to the show with local mortgage and finance expert, Tina Mitchell.
Welcome back to the Money Hour with your host and mortgage expert, Tina Mitchell, right here on 570 KBI. I'm empowering our community, providing you with opportunities and solutions when it comes to anything regarding your money. In studio right now, Representative Judy Clibborn, and we're going to talk a little bit about transportation with her today. House Transportation Chair. Her legislative priorities are creating a sound transportation system that protects trade-dependent businesses throughout the state and keeps Washington's economy globally competitive, continuing to increase job opportunities for working families and ensuring health care coverage to accessible to all of people living in Washington. Judy, thank you so much for coming back. I mean, it's been a long, long time since I've had you across me in studio, but I'm glad you're able to come in and spend some time with me.
Thanks, Tina. Nice to be here.
So let's go ahead and open it up with what's the most important issue right now in transportation.
Well, you've been probably hearing a lot about a revenue package, but I think when you talk about transportation, you're talking about how do we stay competitive. The state of Washington is the most trade-dependent state in the nation. And we don't always think about it that way, but this is universally across the state. Every district either manufactures or grows something that is traded to the rest of the world. So transportation is the investment that keeps us connected to the rest of the world. And we've been working for 2 years on getting a revenue package that we can get through both the House and the Senate. And I think most people who are outside of the legislative process wonder sometimes why. Why are we making all this big fuss about making a new investment in transportation? Although they do know that they're sitting in traffic. At least on this side of the mountains, they're very aware of what the needs are.
So, Judy, why do we need more gas tax or other transportation revenue when we have such a huge and high gas tax already?
So comparing us to other states, we are high because most other states use general fund money that isn't gas tax, to use on transportation. We in this state have our own transportation budget. It is not using general fund. General fund is used for education and health care and human services. Our gas tax is solely used for roads and for things that support the roads, like ferries that are car ferries and state patrol. So as we have had tax increases over the last, say, 10 years, that money has been bonded. We bonded the money. Those taxes built 421 projects across the state, and are still building. Bertha is still being paid for out of the nickel. But the bonds are now coming due. So no more projects. And if we don't have more gas tax, we don't have new projects. We will only have for the next 25 years, as a money person here, 25 years of paying off the bonds.
Yeah.
That's why we need new money.
We got to have some new money.
That's right.
Makes total sense. So why should we put more revenue into Washington State Department of Transportation when all we hear about is mismanagement?
Well, I think that mismanagement actually makes headlines. You know, that's that
fear sells.
It sure
that
does.
thing sells.
Although I did see a headline today that was a good one. You know, about something being on time and on budget, and it was. I kind of laughed because I do get this question all the time. You know, we built the 421 projects, and most of them have been under budget, on time, and have had no problems. The problems that we have had, there has been one small one actually in Tacoma, which most people around here don't even know about, but we paid for it out of the contingency. But you hear about the pontoons. Well, the pontoons did have a mistake. And when you have this many projects, you will have mistakes made. The problem is this was a really big one. And it was a mismanagement of the DOT. People were fired. People were demoted. I don't think we heard about the fact that things like that happened. We just heard about the mistakes. We have managed to come up with a way to pay for the cost of that mistake. And we will do it without impacting anybody's projects. But it is something that makes the headlines, and it makes people feel that there is a lack of control. There's also then, going along with this, the whole idea of Bertha being stuck. And that's a whole nother issue, in that the Bertha tunnel boring machine actually is on warranty to Hitachi.
Okay.
And it is being managed by a company that's a partnership internationally known for building these kinds of tunnels. They're not panicked, but they're in charge.
Okay.
So the DOT is in an oversight role and actually shouldn't get too involved, or you would be picking up some of the risks, which we should not do. So I think they're doing a good job on something that is a pretty high profile.
Sure. So, Judy, can't we save money with reforms and use that money for projects?
I know that reforms have been front and center when we talk about the revenue. And actually, we've done some reforms. We've actually sent over to the Senate a number of reforms that they have asked for. So far, they haven't passed them, but we've sent them over 3 times. It's kind of one of these things about being in the state legislature. You have to get them through both sides of the rotunda and to this and to the governor. But we probably would be able to have the new revenue could be spent in a different way that would save us money. Okay. But you have to spend the money now to have those kinds of savings. Reforms don't help us with things that we've already built.
Yeah. And what if we don't do anything?
Well, if we don't do anything, we will end up having the projects that we have already funded will be completed. We'll complete the tunnel. We cannot complete the other half of the 520 bridge. We will have, as we're paying off the bonding, things like the ferry system. We will not have money to keep it going at its current level. So we will start seeing decreases in service. The State Patrol starts to be in the red. We will start cutting back on those things. But I think even more importantly, when you talk to the business community and they talk about our state, we've been front and center as a really competitive state that can do things. And if we don't do this, we look like we can't govern.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so I think we need to be out there pushing. I'll be pushing this next session for something that we can come up with that we pass together, because I do think that we will have to do something eventually. It won't get any cheaper.
Sure. So I see that King County is going alone to the voters for transit and county roads. Is this good for us?
Well, it's probably good for King County. It's not good for the state.
Okay.
If you go to California, you'll find that there are the have and the have-not counties, where that's how they've balkanized the way they fund transportation. We haven't done that here. And so as I look at what the investment will be, it will be an investment that will give the county what it needs, but it will not give the state the money that it needs. And when you're in Eastern Washington, the irony is that's where a lot of our negative votes are. But they must get their products to our ports over here. And so if we don't have the Snoqualmie Pass finished, or if we don't do 405 congestion, you can't get to the ports. A truck sitting in a line is costing the owner $19 a minute.
Oh, my gosh.
And if we can't keep our ports open, the ships don't come in, and there are no empty containers to put hay and apples in. So we're all connected across the state.
Yeah.
And to go off and spend money and to soak up all the taxing capacity in the largest county, I think is a negative for the state.
Yeah, it makes sense. And what about the 99 tunnel, State Route 99? Who's paying for that?
That's paid for by the nickel the very first gas tax increase. It's completely funded, has major contingencies for all of the issues that we think we'll come up with, and it is a design build, meaning that the risk of anything that happens on that project is carried by the tunnel partnership.
Okay.
And the city of Seattle will not pay for anything if it isn't covered by contingencies. I'll just put that in there because I always get that.
Got it. And what about the overruns on 520?
Well, we managed to come up with a treasurer refinancing some of the tolls.
Okay.
So you're not going to see an increase in tolls for that, but it is now paid. We've managed to pay for the cost overruns. And then we have taken some savings and federal dollars to put together a new contingency for when we finish the rest of the project. So we're all up to speed.
So, Judy, if these are really big needs, why didn't the House and Senate reach an agreement and pass a revenue package?
So this is an interesting story because we worked so hard for 2 years, and we agreed on the money, which was an 11.5-cent gas tax.
Okay.
We agreed on 12 years. We agreed on most of the projects, including the 520 and all the projects that I've mentioned, and many, many more. What we didn't agree on was using the non-gas tax money, which were fees, to support transit, which if you're from this area, you find that mind-boggling. But you have to remember the Senate is now controlled by people who are, majority of them are from Eastern Washington. They just don't have the grasp of how important transit is. So they did not feel ideologically that the state should pay for transit or help pay.
Okay.
And on the other hand, they did want to take money that was sales tax being generated off of construction. That usually goes to the general fund to help pay for education. They wanted that to be put back into transportation. And quite frankly, at a time when we're under a court order to fund education, I don't think that that's a very good way to use our tax dollars. So we split on ideology, which shouldn't be surprising. But I think we also we were so close. There's no reason why we can't go back and start over.
So what about some improvement with the traffic on 520?
On 520? Yeah. Well, on the part that we haven't touched yet, which is Mott Lake and all that, it would be really nice to get that money. And that was part of the revenue package. That was the extra penny that was put in by the Senate actually went for that 520 bridge. Until we will hook it up, but it will be still pretty congested there on Mott Lake.
So anything else, Judy, that you want to share with my listeners today? Anything we can do to help?
Well, I think most people have been very good about supporting a new revenue package. I haven't had a lot of negatives, and not in our neck of the woods anyway. I would share with you that one of the things that's coming up that they might be interested in is that gas tax is a failing revenue stream. People are driving less, or they're driving cars that have better mileage, and that's all good. We like that. But what we're working on now is over the next 10 years, what do we evolve to?
Sure.
So we're looking at vehicle miles traveled, which would be paying by the mile instead of by the gallon. And we're also helping look at alternative fuels. So these are things that you might hear about coming forward. You should know that your leaders are at least thinking about something other than what is, instead of looking backwards, we're trying to look forwards.
That's awesome. Well, Judy, thank you so much for coming into studio. It was nice seeing you again, and we'll have to have you back because I'm sure there's a lot of updates that you can share. So thank you, Judy.
Thank you, Tina. Anytime.
Coming up next on the Money Hour, do you want to protect your beneficiaries, protect your assets from unseen creditors or lawsuits? Make sure your family is not forced to make financial decisions for you after you're gone. Doug Phillips of Phillips Estate Law, right here on 570 KVI after this short break.
Kelly and Kian understand the urgency of shelter both in their business and in their community. They're here for you not only as exceptional real estate brokers, but also advocates for affordable housing and ending homelessness. They've worked with first-time homebuyers, relocation companies, sellers, and are certified negotiating experts. They're also tireless advocates of Windermere Foundation. Kelly and Kian encapsulate their services in one simple phrase: a home for you, a home for all.
Hi, this is Kian Pournour.
And this is Kelly Pornour, and you can reach us at 206-949-9302 or on our website at kellyandkian.com. That number again is 206-949-9302.
Are you behind on your mortgage payments and unsure about the road ahead? Magnum Law Group helps families just like yours navigate through the foreclosure avoidance process. Are you underwater on your home and unsure what to do? Magnum Law Group will help you understand your options. Are you facing foreclosure and need to stop a trustee sale? Magnum Law Group has success in doing this and may be able to help you too. If you're tired of dealing with the banks and getting turned down for loan modification, Magnum Law Group will take on the banks for you and lead you through the process for the best possible outcome. They lead the competition with superior knowledge and expertise.
This is Craig from Magnum. You can reach us at 425-605-6393 or at www.magnumlawgroup.com. See you at the next seminar.
This is the Money Hour with your host, Tina Mitchell, on Talk Radio 570 KBI. Now, back to the show with local mortgage and finance expert, Tina Mitchell.
Welcome back to the Money Hour with your host and mortgage expert, Tina Mitchell, right here on 570 KBI. I build a network of elite industry professionals. My goal is to keep you up to date on the latest news and trends in our local economy. Keep me tuned in, and I will keep you informed. In studio right now, Doug Phillips of Phillips Estate Law, here to discuss today with us estate planning, wills, a little bit about living trust. Doug, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
Doug received his BA in economics with Wilmette University with honors and his Juris Doctorate from the UW. Before starting his own law practice in 2003, he spent 5 years in estate planning group at Bogle & Gates in Seattle, a large international law firm. He has more than 10 years chairing the estate planning department at Inslee, Best, Dosley, and Ryder Bellevue Law Firm. So, Doug, thank you again for coming in and just talking about estate planning, because I think, well, and I know I talk with a lot of clients and I really try to help, as I do here on the show. One of the main reasons I host the Money Hour is because I'm really passionate about helping people in all areas of financing. And I know that it's important in life that we're connected in all those areas and really know who to talk with. But what I find that in my community that I've spent 20 years building up with my clients, estate planning is that area that there's a lot of procrastination. And I think the reason why, because I did it before I actually started doing the show and I started learning things about all these areas, it helps me to protect my family. But we're talking about death. And so it's an easy area just to not want to think about right now today. But let's talk about just an overview of estate planning.
Well, estate planning is something you do because you love somebody else. I think that's the easiest way to think of it.
That's a good way to describe it.
Because you're going to help them, whether it's protecting young children from their own poor decisions as money is passed to them at a parent's death, whether it's protecting or minimizing costs for dealing with disability, dealing with the transfer of assets, and minimizing estate taxes. So there's just so many things that you can do to be proactive and help in all of those areas. And once what I find very interesting when I begin to talk to clients about the specifics of the risks that they face because they have procrastinated,
yes,
their first question is, how quickly can we get this done?
Exactly. I mean, once they actually take time to, yes.
Yeah, I mean, one of my most common questions after we go through some of this with a client, they'll say, because usually it's a 2-meeting process where we'll discuss what they need to do, and I'll draft documents, send it to them for review, and they come back and sign. They'll want to know what happens if they pass away before they make it back to sign their documents. They want to know the fact that they've talked about it. Will that help? And the answer, of course, is no. But then all of a sudden you see, what's at risk, and they just, okay, can we do this next week?
So what about, are your beneficiary designations coordinated?
Well, the concern there is, so in a big picture sense, estate planning is planning for your own disability through what we call powers of attorney, planning for your end-of-life situations through what we call a healthcare directive, Some people call it the pull the plug document, and planning for the transfer of the wealth that you've built up over your lifetime to your loved ones, whether that's through a life insurance policy, or through your retirement plan, or this the transfer of your real estate and other investment assets. But one of the biggest mistakes people make, besides not doing estate planning at all, because something like 60% of people never do. Yeah. But to the extent that you have done estate planning, the biggest mistake I see people make, and the most devastating one by far, is not coordinating the beneficiary designations on their life insurance policies, their annuity policies, and their retirement plans, whether that be a 401k plan or IRA or 403b plan. And what people don't understand is that the beneficiary designations supersede the will. Or if they have a revocable living trust, which we'll talk about to deal with the transfer of assets, they also supersedes the living trust. So what people don't understand is that if they've got a trust for their young children, so if both spouses pass away and their assets pass to their younger children because they want to protect them until they're older, they think, okay, I'm all taken care of. I did my will or I did my living trust. But then what they don't realize is they might have $1 million life insurance policy and $400,000 in their IRA account. They don't understand that when they die, if they have not set up the beneficiary designations so that those assets go to the trust under their will for their children, then those children are going to get $1.4 million at the age of 18. Wow. And that doesn't thrill most parents who have an 18-year-old son, by the way, and I've had 3 of those. What happens is that the money goes directly into what we call a legal guardianship for that child, which adds extra legal expense, by the way. And then at the age of 18, they're considered an adult in the state of Washington, and they get the money directly. And there's nothing anybody can do about that once the parent has passed away. Yeah. So to coordinate that properly, you would need to name the trust that you create for them, either in your general estate plan, and make sure that the assets go directly to that trust. Otherwise, you're just out of luck. They'll get that money directly. And, sure, the rest of your assets, like your house equity and other investments, will go into the trust. Got it. But most people's biggest assets pass outside their will. Yes. Their life insurance when they're younger and their retirement plan when they're older. So it's crucial that those beneficiary designations be coordinated. So that's kind of a passion I have to make sure we get that lined up. And we give all of our clients actual language to take to their investment advisor or life insurance advisor to put those beneficiary designations into place.
Everything we do, we have to be really strategic on the planning, but you can't do it without having an expert like yourself to walk them through the process. So what about, can you explain LegalZoom.com? Why not LegalZoom.com?
Well, the problem with do-it-yourself estate planning is you don't have an opportunity to test it to find out if it works. Okay. Unlike maybe working on your own car. I mean, of course, a mechanic will tell you that you can cause a lot of permanent damage doing that, but at least you'll know usually ahead of time whether it worked or not. The problem with estate plan is you don't, because it becomes effective at your disability or death. So obviously by then it's too late to find out if you've made a mistake or not. And now just your family is dealing with the devastating consequences of poor planning. There is a saying that's been around for centuries that a lawyer's best friend is a rich man who writes his own will. The idea that it's much more expensive to clean it up after the fact rather than to set it up proper in the first place. And I, unfortunately, for this one family, had a situation where that did happen. And we are a very, very large estate. And he did write his own will, unfortunately. And we have spent many, many years and many thousands of dollars in legal fees cleaning up that mess that was created that could have totally been alleviated had
if you would have hired an expert to get the right advice.
Exactly, in the first place.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what about if I have somebody listening that's asking, what about getting a will versus a living trust?
Yeah, it's a question we get asked a lot. The idea of a living trust is a trust you set up during your lifetime. It's revocable, and it's really a will substitute. So it's just another method of transferring assets when you die. Now, in many states, the probate process, as we call it, that's the process where your will is given effect by the court system. In a lot of states, probate is very expensive. California to the south is our closest neighbor, where the fees paid to the estate lawyers and to the executor are a percentage of the value of the assets of the estate. And that percentage fee is often much higher than what the lawyer would get if they charged their normal hourly rate. Other states don't have percentage fee systems, but they simply have arcane laws that require a lot of lawyer time at their hourly rate and thus generate a lot of fees in that other way. However, Washington has neither such situation. We have about the most streamlined probate laws of any state in the country. Many states are kind of using ours as a model, moving our direction. So people are surprised to find out that lawyers don't get rich in Washington doing probates. Okay. I have kids in college, so I sometimes wish that were the case, but it is not. And so we simply charge our normal hourly rate to do the work. And because our laws are more streamlined, we can do that quite cost effectively. So the quick answer to the question, will or living trust, is for most clients, a will is going to serve them better because the fees to do the planning are lower for a will than a living trust. There's less work to do, less education, no transfer of assets up front. And then there's a little bit of money saved usually at the death with a living trust as opposed to a will, but you probably already paid the extra fees up front and have offset that. And given the experts in this room, you understand one of the key issues of living trust is maintenance. And what I have found over the years is that people that have living trusts don't maintain them. Because if they don't put all of their assets in the living trust and keep them there during their lifetime, then at death there will be a probate anyway. Because even with a living trust, there is a backup will called a pour-over will that will, through probate, put all the remaining assets into your trust for distribution. So let's talk about refinancing of real estate. You well know that most lenders don't like to lend to trust-owned real estate. And there's some very few
portfolio lenders out there that will even
touch a portfolio loan, right? They can't sell it on. So what happens is the client has to come back to me and pay me to deed their house out of their living trust, do the refinance and deed it back in. So, and people that went through refinances multiple times. I did that in the last 10 years. Then there's multiple deeds back and forth. And then what you see is people forget to put the house back in the last time.
Really?
And then they die and their house is sitting outside their living trust and now there's a probate. So they've paid all these extra legal fees up front to do the planning. They paid more fees for maintenance, and then it didn't benefit them all at their death. And then even if they did it all correctly, in what they also often don't understand is that there are still legal fees to do to incur to deal with the transfer of assets that are in a living trust. You still have to transfer it onto the spouse or to a trust for the spouse or a trust for the children. You still have to have it valued. You still have to set income tax basis. You still have to do all those normal things that you would do in a probate. There's just a little bit less paperwork and no transaction with the court system at all. But in Washington, that's very, very minimized, because we have what's called a non-intervention probate process. So literally my clients never go to court. There's no very few times is there any petition to the court for any permission to do anything. We just do it on our own signature.
But they do want to avoid probate at all cost.
No, I'm saying no, they don't.
That
actually 99% of my clients go through probate, and it's not a great big deal. Now, it's not free, but it's not also the cost that some people think about. I mean, I'll give you a quick example. I had a client who had a parent who died in California, about $1 million plus estate. The legal fees on that estate, and there's some exceptions, but it was $65,000. Now, people here think that's kind of normal. Well, in Washington, that same size of an estate, for if your law firm that's working with you knows what they're doing, is probably going to be 10% of that, maybe a little bit more. So, it's not a huge number. We quote most clients that have $1 million to $3 million net worth, if we don't have to do an estate tax return, that the fees are much more in the $5,000 to $9,000 range. Just to give an example, that it's not the huge number that a lot of people think that it will be.
So, Doug, what about, there's a lot of different triggers that take place that prompt that they need to pick up the phone and they need to call their estate planner, and one of them being marriage. Let's talk about that.
Certainly. So the way the transfer of assets at death works in Washington and every state is that there is a state system for the distribution of your assets if you have not planned for them yourself. People call it say that the state has a will for if you don't have one. And so the idea is, where will your assets go if you don't make a plan? And so once you get married, you also have this person you love that you want to provide for. And what you might not realize is that when you bring assets to a marriage, they don't instantly become community property and thus instantly pass to your spouse when you die. That's called your separate property. So under our state, what we call intestacy statute, your spouse will not get 100% of your separate property at your death. Your children will get some part of that. If you have children, they'll get half of it, and your parents will get part of it if you don't have children. So if you want it all to go to your spouse, then you're going to need to put an estate plan together to make sure that it does. Now, a second trigger would be having children, obviously, and this is
once you get married, you have babies.
Yep. So that becomes the big motivator for people. But like I said earlier, something like 60 or 65% of people with minor children do not have wills. They have no plan for them. And the big concern there is number one, who will take care of my children if I die, if my spouse and I both die. if I'm married. So we need to name a guardian to, physically take them into their home and raise them until they're 18, at which point they're a legal adult. And secondarily, then, who's going to manage the money for them? Because like I said earlier, if I have assets, and I might be young and not have accrued a lot of assets, but I might have a life insurance policy now that I have children, that money will go directly to the child at the age of 18. So you can't create a trust for them. You have not created a trust for them. So the key point there is to determine who raised your children and who managed the money for them until a later age.
So let's say a listener's listening right now and they have their net worth goes up substantially. Maybe they have an inheritance or something. That's another trigger that they need to be thinking about how to put things together.
Yes, and then besides just the normal goals that you have of providing for your spouse and children, and et cetera, or other loved ones, or even maybe providing for your charitable goals. You're very philanthropic and you believe very strongly and are very passionate about supporting certain philanthropic goals. Then, of course, you need an estate plan to provide for that. But once your net worth goes up, we begin talking about estate taxes. And the good news there is that the amount that a person can pass tax-free has risen dramatically in recent years. So fewer people are exposed to estate tax. But in Washington State, the first $2 million goes tax-free, and the amount above that is taxed, beginning at 10% and going up as high as 20%. The federal government now gives you a $5.3 million exclusion from estate tax. So not very many people are exposed to that. But if you're above that, it's a flat 40%. So there are ways to make sure that, especially if you're married, if you give your assets directly to your spouse and there's no prior other planning, then you'll lose your ability to transfer $2 million to your children at the second death. So if I'm worth $4 million and I'm married, I give my $2 million to my wife. She dies with a $4 million estate, only $2 million is tax-free. But I can plan under my will or living trust to create a trust for her that she'll have use of all $4 million, but at her death, all $4 million will pass estate tax-free. Got
it. Doug, not enough time for any of my guests. I mean, the day just goes by really, really quick. I've got 1 hour, and I'm sorry we don't have more time for more information, but pick up the phone, give my show a call, 1-888-987-0570. Again, 1-888-987-0570. I'll get you connected directly with Doug. This is your host and mortgage expert signing off for the day. I will be back here next Sunday, same time, same place, right here on 570 KVI. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Kelly and Kian understand the urgency of shelter both in their business and in their community. They're here for you not only as exceptional real estate brokers, but also advocates for affordable housing and ending homelessness. They've worked with first-time homebuyers, relocation companies, sellers, and are certified negotiating experts. They're also tireless advocates of Windermere Foundation. Kelly and Kian encapsulate their services in one simple phrase: a home for you, a home for all.
Hi, this is Kian Pournour.
And this is Kelly Pournour, and you can reach us at 206-949-9302 or on our website at kellyandkian.com. That number again is 206-949-9302.
The preceding program was paid for by Absolute Mortgage, a division of Pinnacle Capital Mortgage Corporation. Absolute Mortgage Company, NMLS number 81395 and Washington CL number 81395 is an equal opportunity housing lender. Tina Mitchell, MLO number 145420, is a licensed loan originator with Absolute Mortgage. Visit absoluteloans.com or call 888-90-HOMES for cost information.